Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.
It was tough. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. Really, really tough. As I grappled with what was the best thing to do for me, for the country, for the government. When Vic and I were away with the kids, we went to Chequers and just spent 2 days together as a family. And that's when I came to my final decision. And it wasn't that I didn't want other advice at that stage. I'd had plenty of conversations. But when you are taking the decision to step down from the role as Prime Minister, taking the decision that your political career is over, it is an intensely personal matter, or at least it was for me. And I wanted to do that with Vic, and that's what I did.
Hello and welcome to Quiet Riot Sunday School, the weekend spray bottle to our midweek full ice bath. Hallelujah. 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 I'm Alex.
And I'm Naomi. How are you doing, Alex?
I'm all right. I am enjoying the weather getting back to where it was.
Yeah. I was in Slovenia last weekend while you and Kenny were recording, and it was like 34, 35 there, which wasn't dissimilar, I think, to the temperature in London, but completely different because you could just jump in a lake anytime you got too hot or sit under a shady tree, and it was much more tolerable than being in central London.
So you weren't in Ljubljana?
No, I was near Lake Bled and then
Right.
went to another lake that I can't pronounce, so I don't want to muff that up, I think.
I've only ever been to Ljubljana twice. I do love that city very, very much.
Yeah, I've heard it's very fun. I wanted to ask you about brands that we missed, because with sadness this week, I heard that Lloyds are going to get rid of the Halifax brand within the banking group.
No, don't.
Oh no, have I triggered you?
This household is in mourning.
Oh,
Well, my other half has worked for the Halifax for over 20 years.
No.
I mean, obviously, for a long time now, he's worked for the larger banking group, as it were. But he still sees himself as a Halifax man. He's still annoyed that he's not going to have a Halifax account anymore.
Well, I think it all went downhill after they ditched Howard singing on the Halifax telly adverts. But it has got me thinking about other household brands that have bitten the dust in my lifetime. And I think the standout one for many people that we miss is probably Woolworths, because we all have had such like an iconic memory of getting pick and mix there as a child. And, you know, it might be where you bought your first single or album. And nothing has ever really come close to replacing it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't have that emotional connection with it because I didn't grow up here. So for me, it always seemed quite an inefficient, doesn't know what it sells.
Sure.
Shop, to be honest.
Yeah.
I wasn't surprised when they went under.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I really, really miss Virgin record stores.
Yeah. Hanging out at the one on the King's Road when you were a teenager was about the coolest thing you could possibly do.
I mean, for me, it was Tottenham Court Road because they have the largest classical section, but to each his own. And I do miss that because I miss browsing.
Yeah.
I realized the other day that, especially for music and books, browsing is a really specific activity, isn't it? Where you pick things up and you read the cover and you make a decision of whether you want to explore it further.
And you walk around the shop for a bit with it, and then maybe you change your mind, or, you know, you put it back down, and then just before you leave, you get that pang of, no, I don't want, I do want it. I'm going to go back and get it. You know, yeah.
Yeah, I do the opposite. I always used to, and still do to an extent, when I go to secondhand music shops, I do the two sort. So my first in the basket thing will be very wide. Let's keep it with me, and I'll decide later. And then just before I pay, I do a second sort where I'm a bit more ruthless.
But you have to do that if you're buying secondhand, because there's a risk that somebody else will come along and take it. So
absolutely.
Hoover it all up, put it in your basket, wander around with it, make sure no one else can get their paws on it. Listeners, Alex needs to be kept in records, so head on over to ko-fi.com/Quiet Riot Pod. Sign up for a $5 a month if you can.
Now, what I would talk about today, I was equal parts sort of unsurprised and annoyed to hear Morgan McSweeney in the news effectively admitting that Labour came into government with no plan after the general election.
Yeah, we know, Morgan. You did not need to tell us. It was abundantly clear.
Nevertheless, it is quite rare to get such a sort of behind-the-scenes pass, I guess. And there were interesting things in that interview, so it is worth breaking down for a first half, I guess, for
Sure.
using footballing terms.
Yep. And then after the orange segments, as we go into the second half, we didn't really cover much good news on the show midweek. We certainly didn't have a grin and share it. So I thought maybe we could pick a few positive tales between us to talk about and give us all a little weekend boost.
And finally, Naomi, some extra time, should we need it. I want to talk about the furore over changing pub opening hours for the 1 a.m. England game against Mexico, because the reaction has been, in my humble view, really quite ridiculous.
Well, let's blow the whistle and kick this off.
Quiet Riot.
Morgan McSweeney, the man who ran Keir Starmer's winning campaign and later became his chief of staff, finally sat down for his first proper media interview and admitted something that a lot of people suspected all along. Labour, he said, simply wasn't ready to govern. Speaking to the BBC's Nick Robinson, McSweeney conceded that the party spent so much time and energy trying to win the 2024 election that it never really worked out what to do once it actually got into power.
It was very hard to get people to focus on what we needed to do to win to begin with. And then once we started getting into 2022, 2023, it was about building the machine. But early in 2024, when we were preparing for the general election, when we were sitting down with Pat McFadden in windowless rooms, hour after hour, planning for day one, I did start to realise that we hadn't done enough of analysis about how the state worked and how it needed to change to prepare for government. And then we got exposed for that, I think, early.
What makes this admission land so hard is the timing. McSweeney is speaking now, just days after Starmer's own resignation, and he's doing it as someone trying to close a chapter and move on, rather than a man defending a government still in office. He talked about a lack of top-level conversations about how the world had changed since Labour was last in charge 15 years ago, about needing to deliver results faster than they managed, and about mistakes like the winter fuel payment cuts that he says defined the government in a damaging way at a very early stage. It's a rare moment of a key architect stepping back and saying plainly, we got this wrong. So that's where we're starting today, not with speculation about what went wrong in Downing Street, but with a man closest to the machine telling us himself that it did go wrong. McSweeney says Labour spent all its energy winning the election, none of it figuring out how to govern. Do you think that is a uniquely Labour failure, Naomi, or is it just what happens to every opposition party after a long stretch in the wilderness? Could any amount of planning have prepared them for the state of the public finances they inherited?
Yeah, it could have. I don't think it's a Labour failing necessarily, like a uniquely Labour problem. Blair and Brown had a very good idea of what they wanted to do in 97 after Labour had had a very long period in the opposition wilderness. So I don't think it's true. I don't think Ed Miliband really knew what he wanted. We've talked about that before in the show. When he becomes leader of the Labour Party and 2015 general election, we end up with the Ed Stone. That felt quite weird and ill thought through, or, that there just weren't ideas on the tip of their tongue or at the forefront of their minds.
I mean, most of the commitments on it were pretty sound.
Yeah, but
it was just the I guess the gimmick of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Was meant to declare we are so solid on these we're willing to carve them in stone.
Yeah.
And it actually declared the precise opposite.
Exactly, yeah. So, look, I will, of course, give Starmer the credit for making their party more electable in 2024 than it had been in 2019. But I do think the over-egging of the victory of this incredible political strategy that got them 150-seat majority is naive. The Tories were so unpopular, and Farage's party wasn't yet where it is now in the polls. So there was this confluence of zero overlap between where Labour and the Liberal Democrats were targeting their campaigning and their, resourcing in the run-up to the election, coupled with a complete implosion on the right and a fragmentation of that vote. And that's why Labour won so many seats. It really didn't have that much to do with this incredible strategy and this wonderful Ming Vase approach that meant they were able to keep absolutely everybody happy and nobody was going to be worried about them. They only got 34% of the vote. These things can't all be true at the same time. And I think the reality was that the tide had flowed away from the Conservatives and towards Labour because they were the party best able to capitalise on it at the time. So I don't think they did pour all of their energy into winning the general election and were bereft, therefore, of ideas for government. I think, as you've said very eloquently, they weren't expecting an election. They certainly didn't expect Starmer to be the one to lead the party into an election they might win, because, as you pointed out, everyone was calling it for Johnson to be returned at least once, if not twice, for 3 terms. They were just kind of buffeted along into the position where they end up in number 10.
And then, there were things that kind of compressed the timetable in a way, like the riots. I've often said that those riots were very strategically timed to not give the new government time to really get its feet under the desk. And it's also true to say that I think the right-wing press would have been a lot more patient with a non-Labour government.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have gone for them quite so spectacularly and so quickly as they did. The other thing was the summer election created this weird situation where they had to decide whether to stick to the timing of the budget as it was meant to be or bring it forward, and they made plainly the wrong choice on that.
Yep.
They should have done the budget like within a month of coming into government. And all of those things took a situation that was already quite pressurized, and I think compressed it even more and made it just so much worse.
You mentioning the word patience has jogged my memory on something to say as well, which was, while you say you think the right-wing media would have been much more patient with a right-wing government, I don't dispute that for a second. I also think its voters forgive more quickly. When right-wing governments make a mistake that annoys their right-wing base, the right-wing base make a noise and sing song and dance about it, but then they suck it up and crack on. When the left is wronged, they take that grudge with them for a very, very long time. And winning them back over once you've upset them or let them down, or there's this perception that you've, not delivered on your promises, they take a very long time to forgive you. And clearly, 2 and a bit years into that victory, the Labour vote base has not come back to them, and that's why they're now changing the person at the top.
Riot. Starting or growing your own business can be intimidating and lonely at times. Your to-do list may feel endless with new tasks, and lists can easily begin to overrun your life. So finding the right tool that not only helps you out, but simplifies everything as a built-in business partner can be a game changer. For millions of businesses, that tool is Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the US. From household names like Gymshark, Rare Beauty, and Heinz, to brands just getting started. Shopify has hundreds of ready-to-use templates that can help you build a beautiful online store that matches your brand's style. And you can tackle all the important tasks in one place, from inventory to payments to analytics and more. No need to save multiple websites or try to figure out what platform is hosting the tool that you need. And if people haven't heard about your brand, you can get the word out like you have a marketing team behind you, with easy-to-run email and social media campaigns to reach customers wherever they're scrolling or strolling. Start your business today with the industry's best business partner, Shopify, and start hearing. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/realm. Go to shopify.com/realm. That's shopify.com/realm.
Quiet, Riot.
It still does surprise me, and I think it's telling, actually, that they came into power with such a lack of an ideological skeletal structure to what they wanted to do. They genuinely didn't even have the sort of sketched out outline. I do think that is an indictment of politics today, actually, because again, I don't think this is a unique feature to Labour. Okay, if the Conservatives came in, they would look to cut taxes and privatize something, in the same way that if you sort of tap the patella with a hammer, the foot will kick out. That is just their standard response to any difficulty. But beyond that, I don't think they would have the clarity of a Margaret Thatcher in terms of what it is they were planning to do in the short, medium, and long term. And I'm not, obviously, I'm not applauding the politics of Thatcher, but one felt that, her second term followed the first and her third followed the second.
Yeah.
There was an overall shape to it, and that overall shape was lacking. I am very apprehensive that it will still be lacking when Burnham comes in, if Burnham comes in. It looks very, very likely. Because, yes, we've had a little bit of a aspirational, I guess, summary of the direction he wants to go in. But again, it feels a little bit hollow. It feels a little bit responsive, I guess. A journalist will ask him about defense, and he will have formulated in the last 10 minutes a position about defense because it's in the news. So again, I don't think there is the ideological hinterland behind him that might allow him to take any given hypothetical, A plus B plus C, and know what outcome he wants out of it. And I think someone with a strong ideology does know what outcome they want out of any hypothetical.
Yeah, I mean, let's see. I think the transition team around Burnham, who are in the talks with the civil service and beginning to sort of get that handover from the outgoing Starmer administration, are stuffed full of people who do know their onions and do have that hinterland, that breadth. And at least Andy Burnham has got more of a political background, if not hinterland, than Starmer had.
Yeah.
Has been around the body politic for far longer. But one thing that McSweeney said was that there is an admission that the incoming Starmer government were too pessimistic. They immediately talked about the tough inheritance that they had been left by the Conservatives, how little money there was, and that they should not have done that. It should have been, I think, quote, way more optimistic was his phrase. So A, do you buy that framing? And B, surely Burnham, at least, even if he hasn't got that whole policy hinterland you've alluded to, brings that massive injection of optimism.
I think Burnham will not fall into the same trap. It feels like to me, because of exactly what you said, he's a more experienced politician. He kind of understands the rules of the game. He has a feel for what is in the environment around him that I think is better than Starmer's team. What Starmer's team did wrong was sort of already cast in stone, because you could sense that Labour politicians thought the strategy of basically pinning the global financial crisis on them when the Conservatives came in 2010, they did an incredible job at effectively blaming too many nurses and teachers for the fact subprime mortgages collapsed in America. It was genuinely a superb PR move. Also, a completely immoral and cynical one.
Yeah.
But it worked.
Yeah.
And it kept working. They kept pulling that note out that said we have no money. They kept blaming the mess we inherited. By the time Labour got its shoes on, really, and had a new leader and had decided on a policy, it was established.
Yeah.
And they kept on using it. And I think when Labour came in, they thought, aha, it's our turn now to use that old chestnut.
Yeah.
But the thing is, if you've promised change, you can't come in and use the same method. It doesn't work as well the second time round. People are wiser to it.
Yeah, very much so.
If you come in and start going the mess we inherited,
Mm-hmm.
it's not like voters are hearing that for the first time. They're hearing it for the 1,000th time in the last 15 years. And they don't necessarily differentiate. They just see politicians going, I'm doing it, I'm doing it. You know, so it actually stacks on top of 14 years of the mess we inherited. And that's why we can't do anything. And I don't think they calibrated that at all. They must have believed they would come in and get several months' grace behind that. Look, we inherited a very bad situation. Excuse. Well, it's not an excuse, it's true. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Behind that justification to turn a few things around. And they didn't. People were just, oh, yeah, we've heard that before. They don't differentiate. You know, the vast majority of voters, as much as politicians hate to think so, the vast majority of voters have a big category that just says politician in the title. And everyone looks different shades of the same color in there.
So the first call that Keir had with the president, he got into a conversation about windmills. And he started saying, look, Britain's a beautiful country, but you have too many windmills. Fine. He was making his point. He's made that publicly enough times. Then he started to say the windmills are killing your birds. The birds are falling by the windmills. The foxes are eating those birds. And at this point, the officials that were in the room were barely able to contain themselves because it was extremely funny. But this was the first call between the Prime Minister and the President, and everyone wanted to be professional, but were struggling to hold it together. And he went on to say that as the foxes ate so many birds and became lazy, they became fat. And as they became so fat, people no longer knew what kind of a creature they were because they were too fat. They were these fat foxes walking around Scotland, eating dead birds. And this was the first call between the President and the Prime Minister. And I thought, this is just going to be so very, very different.
McSweeney also mentioned, which I thought was interesting, he said this isn't about blaming Sue Gray or any one individual. Bringing someone up who's left a year and a half ago kind of says to me, maybe you are blaming Sue Gray. But he said it's the Labour Party more generally. Is that a fair and sort of mature way to own collective failure, or just a convenient way for him personally to avoid scrutiny for the bum steers and the poor strategy that he came up with?
I mean, I was critical of the appointment of Sue Gray at the time because it is such a political role. There is no more political job in the land than Chief of Staff to the PM. And she was a civil servant. She had great skill, but that role was always going to be very, very hard for her. Who do I blame for that? I blame Keir Starmer not having enough political heritage to know that was always going to be a tricky appointment. And the same comes from, any Svengali, whether that is Dominic Cummings, Morgan McSweeney himself, or the ones before and the ones that will follow after. The buck stops with the person that hires them, who puts their faith in the strategic judgment of that person. And I do think that Andy is much more likely to have people in those roles, and he's already announced a couple of them, who understand the Labour Party well and have a good understanding of how to navigate what the party will require of its leader with that the public will require of the Prime Minister. But is this about rewriting your own history and making sure that you look good in the write-ups and the history books? Of course there is a bit of that, and everyone in high office in business or politics or military or whatever will seek to make sure that the shine on their legacy is as good as it can be. So I sort of don't blame McSweeney for trying to do that. Everyone always does, and he's a youngish man. He'll want to still have a political career.
You are very generous to him all of a sudden.
Well, I mean, I do blame Starmer more than I blame him.
Quiet, Riot. This is going to be an extremely busy month. I have to watch 104 soccer games, follow the pregame, the postgame, yell useless opinions at the TV. It's a lot. So I knew that when it comes to screening for colon cancer, the choice was clear. The Cologuard Plus test. It can be used at home and can only take 15 minutes, so I can do it during halftime and not miss any action. If you are 45 or older and at average risk, ask your healthcare provider about screening for colon cancer with the Cologuard test. You can also request a prescription at Cologuard.com.
Quiet, Riot.
At what point do you think that role changed? Because I know lots of people point to someone like Ali Campbell, and there were people actually in both the Major and Thatcher government that did, roughly speaking, that job. But you see, I don't think Ali Campbell was a central person in deciding policy. I think he was there to make the best of the chosen policy. I think he was there to say, don't do that, it will be a disaster for, public perception reasons. So I think he was there to point out perception risks.
Yeah,
I never saw him as, but then you had the coalition. And in the coalition years, in many ways, policy was shaped by the deal between the two parties. So actually, even though the Conservatives had not been in power for a very long time, it was kind of lucky that during that month's wrangling and negotiations and who do we appoint in what position, quite a lot of the heavy lifting was done in giving a shape to what they were going to do, rubbish as it was. And then the Conservatives get their own majority. Actually, towards the tail end, I think, of the coalition, they started to marginalize Liberal Democrats and kind of took over the reins of government. Really, in the last 2 years, it didn't feel like a coalition. I don't know what you think about that, but that's how it felt to me. And then you have people like Hilton and people like that coming in, supposedly in that Ali Campbell position, but actually they're there to make policy. They're pie-in-the-sky thinkers. I think that was quite a new thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think when to talk about Alistair Campbell in isolation, he was press secretary, the PM's official spokesperson, and then I think Blair creates this new role of director of communications for Number 10 that he ends up in, and that's where the Malcolm Tucker pastiche of that role is created from. I think what happens from Brown going onwards is this real emergence of a mid-career prime minister, pretty young, whether that's Cameron, Sunak, Clegg, you could say that of as well, Truss, people that come in.
May as well, actually.
Quite young, actually. Obviously Blair was very young when he is elected. So I think when you have a younger cohort that are more likely to sort of see being prime minister as a stepping stone to another big job they're going to get globally afterwards or whatever, you are going to have, by definition, less experience of running things, of being, a chief executive in that kind of position. And you will probably lean on and outsource more of your thinking to other people in and around you. And that might be why comms people, press people end up having to kind of do policy on the hoof, because they're not getting that leadership from this, steeped in ideological thinking leader as PM.
Did McSweeney express any kind of views on Burnham, actually?
Yeah, I mean, he pretty much says that he backs Burnham as the likely successor, and likes his idea of having a Number 10 in the north, running a bit of a Downing Street operation out of Manchester. And so, that's why I'm pleased from what I'm hearing about Burnham's team in terms of their own preparedness
Yeah.
to not fall, the same fate as Starmer, and to be able to hit the ground running. I don't think we're going to see quite the same number of mistakes being made. Certainly the comms operation is already better. And I do think they're doing a hell of a lot of heavy lifting on the thinking around policy. And hopefully we'll get this foreign policy speech within the next week or so.
That will be interesting to listen to, as was, I think, the fact that he didn't take questions. Again, that seems to indicate to me that it's the fabric of what he's putting together is relatively loosely woven at the moment. And he needs a period where no one is prodding holes into it.
Yeah.
And he will get that.
Yeah,
He's in the lucky position that he will get that, at least a couple more weeks of it. Do you think there's what percentage chance would you give to someone else throwing their hat in the
zero?
Yeah, he's going to walk into number 10
Yeah.
really on the 17th of July, isn't he?
Coronation, total. I mean, unless he gets run over by a bus, nobody else is going to risk it. The women obviously are getting very worried about there being more Miliband's in the great offices of state than women. They are sending a warning shot to him of, you bloody well make sure that power is well dispersed between the genders. If it is very obvious that he's going to put David Miliband into foreign secretary role, Ed Miliband into chancellor, and keep one woman in the Home Office.
Oh, I didn't know about the David Miliband thing. Is that a new bit of gossip going around?
This is being sort of well bandied around, and apparently it's Ed Miliband that's even suggested to Burnham that David is brought back.
So stick him in the House of Lords, presumably.
Exactly, put him in the Lords, and then he can be a minister from that. And this is what's got quite a few of the women annoyed. They're like, you cannot have more Milibands than women in the great offices of state. And come on, this is 2026. So I suppose if there was a very strong feeling that he was going to go ahead with that, you might get a woman throwing her hat in the ring just to make a point. But at this stage, nobody can beat Andy.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to ask you about was a refrain we've heard from a lot of people in these roles, whether Dominic Cummings and now McSweeney, about the role of the state itself being bloated, but yet weak. It can't deliver things, yet manages to block them. You're a former civil servant, so I wanted to sort of put that to you, how genuine a structural diagnosis you think that is, and whether it needs taking more seriously, or whether it is just quite a convenient narrative for departing insiders to say, oh, the system is rigged, the system is difficult, we can't, not our fault, can't turn around a tanker in a couple of years.
In a weird way, it's both. It's both a convenient narrative and true, but not due to the reasons that they put forward. So there is something mendacious about the narrative. A lot of what public servants do, whether civil servants or people in other departments, or people working for the NHS or people in independent non-governmental agencies, everything they do requires a sort of framework for it to work. Because otherwise, every civil servant has is a set of often contradictory, quite vague rules that they need to apply to everything. And unless they know, broadly speaking, what outcome is this government hoping for out of the application of these rules, the whole system becomes Kafkaesque in the true sense of the word. That the process is there, but they don't know why the process is there. No one knows why they're applying these rules. Does the government want more immigration? Does it want less immigration? What happens with a shortfall in terms of employment? All of these things require a big body of people to have a summary idea of the direction of travel. And so it is that lack of an ideological spine, it is that lack of a North Star that is missing from there. All of those civil servants should be able to perform exactly the same function as I was saying to you, a politician should. They should know the method via which, the equation via which they can be applied to any hypothetical situation and arrive at the right outcome for this government. A truly independent civil service will look to do that. They will look to follow the lead of the government. If they don't get a lead of the government, they just sit there and apply rules because that's their job.
Yeah.
But they don't know why and to that end, to what end. I think McSweeney is right. The state itself was flabby and out of shape, but that's because their leadership of the state was flabby and out of shape.
Quiet, Riot.
Welcome to a new era of baseball's great spectacle, the T-Mobile Home Run Derby, live on Netflix. The biggest sluggers in baseball put their talents to the test on All-Star Weekend. Raw power meets star power. Big swagger meets bigger slams. And you don't swing to make contact. You swing to make history. Watch the T-Mobile Home Run Derby live on Netflix, Monday, July 13th at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific.
Quiet, Riot.
And now, for something a little lighter, we thought we could dedicate an entire section of the show to sharing good news.
Good news is welcome to me. Bad news is hell come to me. Good news. I want good news.
We didn't do Grin and Share It for our midweek show, but there have been some very lovely stories trickling in. Alex, what's first on your list?
The first on my list is Claudia Godlin. She's a Harvard professor. She's the first woman to win the Economics Nobel Prize solo.
Wow.
Actually, there are a lot of firsts in her career. She was one of the first to get a PhD in economics. She was, I think, the first woman to be tenured at Harvard for economics. And so, she's broken glass ceilings all her life. And then she won.
And what area of economics does she do?
So she did pay inequality. She trawled through data to see how it holds economies back, how it has effects that go well beyond the workplace, how it reverberates through the education system, everything really. And once she won the prize a couple of years ago, she received thousands of invitations and requests to work on projects, to be patron of this, to put her name to that, etc., etc. And she accepted only 3. So the first was for her to go to her favorite radio program. It's called Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me.
Aww.
And it's basically the American equivalent of the news quiz. It's a
fun.
panel of people, most of them comedians, but some of them scientists and people like that, being given questions about the week's news and having to answer them. So that was the first invitation she accepted. The second invitation that she accepted was to throw out the ceremonial first pitch at a Red Sox game.
Oh.
Despite the fact actually she grew up supporting the Yankees, but she's been at Harvard for more than 3 decades, and so she had to go Red Sox. And she practiced and wound the crowd by throwing a strike.
Oh wow! Good woman.
Because she never played, she was a geek at school. She never played any sports.
And presumably isn't that young either.
No. And the third invitation she accepted was from the Women's NBA, the National Basketball Association.
Wonderful.
Who were in the middle of negotiating their next contract, the next collective bargaining agreement. And she led that. She took that on. She led it. She kept the line. She battered the professional bodies, because the TV rights have gone up and up and up for women's games, but the remuneration that women get has not. And she managed to negotiate a nearly 400% rise for the pot of money that goes to players. And it is the largest ever negotiated raise of any collective bargaining exercise that we know of.
I've just found the secret to her success.
Which is?
Which is from her Wikipedia page, okay? She is a big fan of golden retrievers, and it says She often presents her ideas to her dogs out loud as part of her process in working out possible models and writing. So they give her the feedback. So this is how she's been able to negotiate a whopper pay rise for women.
Solid plan.
The dogs helped. I love it. I might be in love with this woman.
Isn't she fabulous? 79 years young. So what's your first one?
Well, something you and I have both been calling for years now has finally happened. A government department, but very notably Lisa Nandy's department, Culture, Media and Sport, has said that it is leaving X. Lisa Nandy is leaving X.com personally, but she is taking her department with her. And she says that the platform, quote, now favours abuse and misinformation over meaningful debate that isn't healthy for our democracy or our communities. And she's going to stay on Meta platforms and LinkedIn instead. Now, why does this matter? Well, obviously, we already had Richard Hermer, the Attorney General, take his department. He basically banned his office from posting X last month after the Henry Novak murder and Elon Musk trying to whip up division in the UK over it. But of course, DCMS is the ministry responsible for media policy, online safety, and regulating platforms like X. Of course, Kemi Badenoch has jabbed back with DCMS is supposed to counter and deal with misinformation, not run away because it's all too much. I mean, that line is not going to fly with anyone. I think this is good news, overdue. Well done,
I mean,
Lisa.
if you sort of fed Kemi Badenoch's idiocy to ChatGPT now,
That's what it would come out with.
That's what it would come out with on this.
Or better, maybe.
Topic, or maybe better,
Yeah. So
certainly
anyway,
delivered with less snide.
Not too much to go into on the detail. I just thought it was good news worth sharing, making sure everybody knows. Let's hope the rest of them follow in due course.
No, that is good news. Can I ask you if the Attorney General of a government and the Secretary of State for Media and Digital of a government say this is not a place for a government to be, why is anyone still on there?
Quite. They should have weaned themselves off a very long time ago.
I mean, how is it okay for the health department?
Any of them, the Prime Minister, for God's sake. So, look, I think Andy Burnham will hopefully do a bit of a reset for whether number 10 and he is on there. He's doing quite a lot of digital stuff at the moment.
Yeah.
He's done a Reddit Ask Me Anything and an Instagram Ask Me Anything and an LBC phone. And so let's see. I think he's very keen to engage people in good faith, but I can't see him wanting to touch that cesspit.
Good.
In his role as PM. So that's good news. What's next on your good news list?
The Walton Picture House in Liverpool is saved. It was basically going to close down. It opened in 1927. It was about to close down. It wasn't breaking even as a private company or whatever. And the locals basically put together a community group and started a campaign to raise the money so they could purchase it. And they needed 450,000 to purchase it, and also for initial setup costs to kind of make it sustainable for a couple of years and see what they could do with it. It's a historic site. It's a beautiful building, sort of Art Deco, absolutely
I know
lovely.
this type. Loads of them got turned into bingo halls. So it's lovely old Deco cinema.
With one day to go, they smashed through their total on the 8th of May. They needed to raise 450 grand, and they ended up raising 532,000. And then another thing happened.
Okay.
So a mystery backer, completely anonymous, stepped in and purchased the building and has granted the community group a 101-year lease for a peppercorn rent
What a good egg.
of £19.27 a year because it opened on Boxing Day 1927.
Oh, how lovely.
And so their future is assured for the next 100 years, 101 years. It's assured to the 200th anniversary, basically, in 2127 as a community space. And they get to use that 530 grand to set it up properly, to, repair it, maintain it. So it's getting the best possible start in life. And this was a lovely, lovely bit of good news and very quiet Riot, I think. People
Very
taking
quiet, right?
action. And it was sent in by listener Erica, who
Oh,
heard
thank you,
us
Erica.
musing about Liverpool and how much we love it and thought she'd send this story in so we
I'm going to
could.
go there next time I'm in Liverpool.
Lovely.
Well, I want to thank another listener for my next one. This is Sue Rubenstein, and it is lovely news. I'd heard it, but I'm very grateful that she also reminded me by emailing it in. And this is another beaver victory. We've done beavers before on Grin and Share It, but they have now helped to
You
stop
love your
flooding.
beaver
I
stories,
love a
don't
beaver.
you?
I love a beaver. No, they're great animals. They are incredible. Otters, I'm less of a fan of for reasons that,
Don't.
I won't go into.
Yeah,
Then
don't.
they can be a bit brutal.
Do not. Just don't.
Beavers are lovely, and they've helped stop flooding in Ealing, and specifically Greenford
Ealing?
Station, which floods almost every year. So since they reintroduced beavers, I think about 5 years ago, there have been no flooding of the station any winter since. And this is because of this dam network that they've created, where water flows much more slowly, gets absorbed into the ground, moves away into other areas. And it has just been this rip-roaring successful flooding prevention. I think there are now 8 beavers. It was originally a couple that got released, and then, the children have had children since then. And if you want, you can go at nighttime, and the mum is coming out at the moment with the babies, and you can see her latest kits at night. And I think there's the local kind of beaver trust that will take you out and show you where you can safely observe them. So it's not only the flooding stuff, but it's had, as always happens with beaver reintroduction, a big boost to the biodiversity of the area, and far more species beginning to inhabit these waterways that have been created by the dam network. And it's just a lovely environmental, the symmetry, the biosymmetry, and the fact that we can coexist together in ways that enhance both species. It's just lovely.
Yeah. Sometimes you save an animal and it saves you right back, isn't it?
Exactly. So go on then. Give us one last one, Alex. What have you got?
Okay, so I thought this has been quite a Scottish-themed week, and it's also Pride weekend coming up. And so I wanted to talk to you about the story. I don't know if this is a grin and share it, but fuck it. I grinned. So this is about former SNP Minister Kate Forbes, who has come out and given a speech to the Alliance for Responsible Citizenship, whatever. Basically, she told people that she was, I quote, a slam dunk for the party leadership until her Christian views on gay marriage were revealed.
Right.
And that's what did for her, basically. I mean, spoilers, she wasn't a slam dunk. Hamza Yusuf was the favorite from the very start. But having said all that, I just thought, don't threaten me with a good time.
Yeah.
You were a slam dunk until you opened your mouth and revealed your bigotry. Yeah. And then you lost the election. This is a very good news story as far as I'm concerned.
Brilliant, I agree.
Happy Pride, Kate.
Yay, happy Pride. Well, my last one, actually, you and I chatted about it earlier, and it's triggered another idea. But it's that Spain has been blacklisting Palantir. So this is the massive tech giant that involves people like Peter Thiel, not on the side of the angels. And basically what Spain has been saying is that the big state-backed giants like Telefonica, Navantia, etc., have to avoid any new contracts with Palantir over fears of national security and where data could end up in the wrong hands. And this is good news because it is such a rare example of a government taking data sovereignty really seriously instead of just talking about it. Spain is following, I think, France and Germany, who have also made some cuts to offering Palantir new contracts. And Thiel and Alex Karp, who's the CEO, they are extremely close to President Trump and that administration.
And Musk.
Exactly. And, there is a risk where a foreign government could theoretically disable or weaponize your system in a diplomatic spat. It's mad that we have to even say those words out loud between Western states, but that's where we are.
Yeah.
So I just think this is kind of like a quiet, sensible pushback against tech dependency that probably hasn't had as many headlines as it should have.
Well done, Pedro Sanchez, once again.
Well done, Sanchez, again.
There seem to be quite a lot of good stuff going on in Spain at the
Exactly.
moment.
So you thought that we should probably do a Spain special.
Yeah, and if listeners have any good ideas for who should be the guest for that, if they are maybe a Brit living in Spain or a Spaniard living in Britain.
Who's our anecdote? Who's our Spanish
And yes, who's
correspondent
our
over
Spanish
here?
anecdote? We want someone outspoken, smart, progressive generally, but non-partisan, basically, that calls it well. And we'll do a special on Spain, because I think there's quite a lot of good stuff going on there at the moment.
Quiet Riot.
Big weekend news for anyone who fancies a pint in the middle of the night with their football. Pubs across England and Wales have been given the green light to stay open until 5 a.m. on Monday morning so that fans can watch England take on Mexico in the World Cup in the last 16. The match kicks off at 1 a.m. UK time and it is expected to run until at least 3 a.m. And the extension only comes after the government initially said it wouldn't relax the rules for pubs that hadn't already applied, before reversing course following quite a fierce backlash. So naturally, what should be an unambiguously fun bit of news, the country's team doing well at the World Cup has already managed to generate council disputes, MP complaints, and a full policy U-turn before a ball has even been kicked in the match. Alex, why do we just try and snatch bad news from the jaws of great news every time in this country?
I don't know, to be honest. And it's not, I mean, actually every country does that. People tend to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory all the time, especially around football. But what really bothered me about this is that everyone is putting out statements. Like the police are putting out a press statement to the BBC going, oh, why are we being told about this at such short notice? And it's
because we only qualified when we beat
only just qualified.
the DRC on Wednesday.
We only just qualified. And also, I disagree with your presenting this as a U-turn. I think the government had the right idea to start with, but obviously, you've got to do what the public wants you to do. It's in this kind of case. But why didn't pubs apply for it anyway in the off chance?
This one pub owner in Leamington Spa who had his late opening refused, but the application refused because he hadn't given the notice period that was required, I think 5 days.
No, but why didn't they apply anyway? That's
Well,
what I'm saying.
And is this government lack of preparedness or an independent business lack of preparedness? I mean, the odds were always, that we probably would make it out of the groups.
It's a tournament. We don't know we're through until we're through. You can't jinx it by going, oh, we're definitely through. Then let's announce that the pubs are going to be open, and then we're not through. You can't underestimate the countries we're playing in that way and disrespect them in that way. You can't even predict the result of the other people in the group that you will be matched with, because obviously, that involves teams that are still playing. So it's only when both teams are known and that it's a late night game that you can make that decision.
Exactly.
It's a good thing. We've gone further into the tournament and everyone is putting out Viking press statements going, oh, this will cause massive problems for us.
And
the schools are
debating whether, the children need a lion and all that.
Yeah, because basically Tuchel said, if it were him, he'd let his kids stay up to watch it.
Kids being able to watch the game tonight because of the kick-off time. Have you got a message maybe for their parents who now have to try and get them to go to sleep after that?
Write an excuse for school and let them watch football. Come on, there's so much school to go to, but World Cup is every 4 years. Let them watch. There will be a big match in 4 days, and we need the support of everyone, and especially of the children.
And so now suddenly people are getting involved and saying, who are you to tell me how to raise my child? It's like, no one's telling you how to raise your child. Just do whatever you want, for God's sake.
Exactly.
Someone, of course, a journalist goes up to the Secretary of State for Education and says, can you open the schools late on a Monday so that kids can stay up to the middle of the night before? And she's like, no.
I've told my team they can come in late.
We don't, yeah, sure. But schools don't do that.
No.
If you're late, you're late. You know,
And
it's
also,
school,
if you're,
for God's sake. What are they going to do
so
to you?
young that you can't just be a bit tired for one day, then you shouldn't be staying up till 3 o'clock in the morning. Like, if you're at primary school, you really, like, your parents are going to have to just record that for you and let you watch it another time, I think.
Yeah.
If you're a teenager at secondary school, you stay up half a night anyway. It's fine. You have one loss of sleep and still crack on with school.
And also, let's be realistic, okay? If we win, everyone will have loads of energy for school and work the next day.
Exactly.
If we lose, everyone would be miserable, and they would be miserable if the game was being played at 7 in the evening. So just chill out, enjoy the moment. I just looked at that. I looked at that story and looked at how many people had issued a public statement saying what their view was on this. And I was like, oh, for God's sake, have we genuinely just lost the ability to enjoy what is universally a good thing?
And that, collective sense of moment and occasion that is so rare these days.
I mean, we keep saying we're a divided country because people no longer congregate together in public places.
Well,
here's an opportunity.
Exactly, and I just think all pubs should have a late license anyway. You know, we have killed the nighttime economy in this country, and we desperately need more venues that stay open incredibly late. I was amazed, even as a teenager moving from Northern Ireland to London, I assumed it would be a 24-hour city. That's what I'd been led to believe, and I was like, oh wow, there's only really a few clubs that stay open much past midnight.
Yeah, because it's about managing. The problem is it's quite a dense city, and there are very few areas where there's no residential properties. If you look at other European cities, there are actually areas that are genuinely industrial or whatever. London doesn't really have that. Even in the most businessy or industrial area, there are still people who live there. And so I think you have to manage the flow of people coming out of the club. That's the problem.
Absolutely.
The problem is that people come out and they shout or whatever, or they might decide, and this is a purely hypothetical example, it is not. They might decide to stand at the corner outside your bedroom and just chat with each other after the bar has closed for another hour and a half. And you're working the next morning, and that's just not on.
Well, Alex, I hope that I will be able to hear you across the river on Sunday night, whooping with joy when
But can I just tell you, whereas my other half did the British thing and just bottled up an incredible amount of anger about the noise going on outside a couple of nights ago, I just opened the window and said, sorry guys, can you move along now because I have an early morning? And they went, oh yeah, sorry. And walked off. And it's like, people just don't think, it's not necessarily, you're not necessarily going to get to some massive confrontation if you're nice to people. Anyway.
Quiet. Riot.
And that is all for this Sunday's show. As you can hear, the hay fever has got the better of me. I can barely breathe right now. So thank you once more for allowing us inside your cochlea, bunged up as we are. We appreciate your trust.
And remember to scooch over to ko-fi.com/quietriotpod and give us a few quid as a show of appreciation for what we do, sneezing and all. It keeps this podcast going and makes sure that we can get it out to everyone for free at the same time, regardless of their ability to pay.
That is correct. No 2 tiers here.
We love you more than half-time pie.
Oh, just about. Come on in.
Quiet. Riot.
Quiet Riot is an audio production from Cooler Heads, written and produced by Andreou, Naomi Smith, and Kenny Campbell. Music by Mariana Sangeeta, artwork by Simona Canelu, and edited by me, Alex Reese.
Quiet Riot.
Communism is the enemy of free people everywhere in the world. Above all, it's the enemy of July 4th, 1776. It is the enemy indeed. Communism is the exact opposite of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's death, tyranny, and the pursuit of evil. They don't love God, and they don't want God. They don't love religion, and they don't want religion, and they won't have it. So on the eve of this 250th anniversary of American heritage, we resolve and swear for all to hear that the citizens of the United States of America will vanquish communism quickly. Don't let them take too much of your time. You know they're wasting your time, don't you?